You ever have one of those moments where everything clicks but in the worst way possible? For me, that moment was on my 34th birthday. I came home with takeout, wearing a stupid little smile because I'd finally finished this huge project at work, and I thought, okay, maybe he planned something. Maybe he left a note. Flowers. A slice of cake even. I wasn't asking for fireworks. Just something. But the apartment was dark. Not romantic dinner dark. Empty dark. I stood there for a second, holding a bag of cold pad thai, staring at the silence. No music, no candles. Just the sound of my own dumb optimism echoing back at me. Then my phone buzzed. A text from him. Running late. Don't wait up. Love you. No, happy birthday. No, sorry. Just 3 short sentences that felt like a slap. And you know what the worst part is? I didn't even get mad. I just stood there in my work shoes, whispering to myself, of course. Of course he forgot. That's when it really hit me. Not just the birthday. Not just the silence. But the fact that I'd gotten used to being invisible. Like I'd been training for this moment for years and didn't even know it. Let me rewind a little so you're not totally lost. My name's Rachel. Rachel McLean. I live in Austin. Work in brand strategy for a tech company that sells stuff you'd never need unless an algorithm convinced you otherwise. I like my job. I'm good at it. But my personal life? That's another department. My husband, is Andrew. On paper, he's the guy every mom wants their daughter to marry. Tall, charming, full of stories. A corporate lawyer who made 6 figures and dressed like a catalog. The kind of man who could talk his way out of a speeding ticket and get the cop to apologize. But charm can rot too. You just don't smell it until you're already too close. When we first met, he was all in. Texts all day. Surprise lunch drop-offs. Holding my face in his hands like I was something rare. You know how it is in the beginning, everyone's perfect, even their dumb jokes. But over time things changed. He got busy. I got quieter. He started traveling more for work. I started staying later at the office just to avoid the weird silence between us. We stopped talking. Then we stopped laughing. Then we just stopped. There were signs. Of course there were signs. Like how he suddenly became protective of his phone. Or how he started working out more but never invited me along. Or the way he'd say, just a colleague, and then change the subject faster than a magician doing a coin trick. But I didn't push. Because when you love someone, you give them the benefit of the doubt. Over and over. Until one day you realize you've built a whole marriage out of excuses. Back to the birthday. I waited. I sat on the couch, eating noodles that tasted like regret. By 10, I was in bed. Alone. Again. Around midnight, I heard the front door open. I didn't get up. I just listened. His voice, low. Laughing. And then her voice. A girl. Young. Southern accent. Whispering something flirty. And that was it. They were in our home. I felt my whole body go cold. I didn't yell. Didn't cry. I just picked up my phone, tiptoed into the guest room, and shut the door. Quietly. And that night, lying there under an old blanket, one thought kept repeating in my head like a broken loop. So this is how it ends. But you know what's strange? That wasn't the real end. That was the beginning. Because the next morning I made a decision I didn't even know I was capable of. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't even going to tell him I knew. I was going to plan. And that, my friend, is when everything changed. The morning after that birthday disaster, I made coffee with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. I kept hearing her voice in my head. That laugh. That flirty little whisper like she belonged in my house. In my life. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the mug like it might give me answers. It didn't. So I did what any self-respecting woman with high-speed Wi-Fi and a broken heart would do. I started digging. Now Andrew's not dumb. He covered his tracks well. No names. No texts. Just a lot of vague work dinners and blurry stories. But you can't hide everything. Not forever. Because 2 nights before I'd noticed a stray earring in the bathroom drawer. Not mine. Tiny gold hoop. Definitely not mine. That was my first breadcrumb. The second? A photo on his phone I saw over his shoulder last week. He swiped past it too fast, but I remembered enough. Some party, some rooftop, a girl in a red dress with long blonde hair. Smiling at him like she already had him. I remembered the name tag on her dress, Savin. That was all I saw. But it was enough. I typed it into Instagram. Savannah. Blonde. Mid-20s. Big eyes. Bio said, legal assistant. Future attorney. Dog mom. Found her. Do you know that feeling when your stomach drops before your heart catches up? Yeah. That. I scrolled through her feed like I was reading my own obituary. Trips. Cocktails. Fancy hotel mirrors. Captions like, he gets me, and late nights worth it. And then, the kicker. A picture of her holding a wine glass, Andrew's watch clearly visible in the background, on a hand resting on her thigh. Subtle. Real subtle. At first, I wanted to message her. Say something scathing. Or just send a fire emoji and nothing else. But then I saw him. A guy. Dark hair, backwards cap, sleeves rolled up, grease on his hands. Real guy. Looked like someone who fixed engines and didn't lie about where he was at 11 p.m. Tagged as Brian Holt. Boyfriend. Well, that's interesting. His page was private, but his profile pic said enough. Him and Savannah. Hugging. Smiling. Matching Halloween costumes. One of those guys who looked like he meant it when he said, I love you. So I did something insane. I messaged him. I wrote, Hi Brian. You don't know me, but I think we've both been lied to. Mind if we talk? He didn't reply for hours. Honestly, I expected to be blocked. Or ignored. But then, late that night he wrote back. Meet me tomorrow. Noon. Brew and Bean on South Congress. I'll be the guy who looks like his life just exploded. Honestly? Same. So I went. And there he was. Worn out hoodie. Ball cap. Tired eyes. He looked up at me like he didn't know whether to hug me or run. You must be Rachel, he said, voice low. And you're Brian. We sat down. Ordered coffee. Didn't talk at first. Then he just sighed and said, so they're screwing, huh? I blinked. You knew. I suspected. But I hoped I was just paranoid. He looked away for a second. She started working late. Then she started dressing like she was going to auditions instead of a law office. Then I saw her Venmo activity, dinners in hotels, drinks in rooftop bars. Stuff I couldn't afford and she never invited me to. He shook his head. And I knew something was off when she stopped laughing at my stupid jokes. That was always her tell. I stayed quiet. It felt too familiar. I found your message the same day she told me she needed space. He actually did air quotes when he said it. I nodded slowly. I heard them. In my house. His jaw clenched. And in that moment, we weren't strangers. We were co-survivors. Two people sitting in the same wreckage, trying to figure out what the hell just hit them. We talked for almost 2 hours. He told me how they met. Andrew was giving a talk at her school. She asked questions. Flirted. He loved the attention. She loved the money. And suddenly they were working late. He said, you know what's crazy? I kept thinking if I was just better, if I worked harder, dressed sharper, maybe she'd come back. But now I'm sitting here realizing it was never about me. I nodded. Same. I kept shrinking to make room for him. And somehow it was still never enough. He smiled sadly. So, what do we do now? I took a sip of coffee. It tasted bitter but solid. We take our lives back. And you know what he said? Hell yeah. Let's ruin their little fantasy. I didn't expect that. But damn, it felt good to hear. We exchanged numbers. No plan yet. No blueprint. Just a promise. This isn't over. Not by a long shot. You ever make a plan you're not entirely proud of, but it feels so right you do it anyway? That was us. After meeting Brian, I didn't go home and cry. I didn't sit around replaying Andrew's lies in my head. I opened a Google Doc and titled it, Operation Payback. Professional? Maybe not. Therapeutic? Absolutely. Brian was in from the start. Turns out, under that quiet mechanic energy, the guy had a little chaos in him. Not the scary kind. The productive kind. You want evidence? He said. I know a guy. I raised an eyebrow. Like, what kind of guy? He smirked. Let's just say, he knows how to find stuff. Without asking too many questions. Honestly, I didn't want details. If Brian said this guy could help us get proof, I was in. Because let me be clear, I wasn't going to scream in Andrew's face. I wasn't going to cry in the driveway. I wanted certainty. I wanted clarity. And then maybe, just maybe, I wanted a little performance. Step 1, bait the trap. I texted Andrew that Thursday. Big news at work. Let's do dinner tomorrow night. Just the two of us. He replied an hour later. Sorry, babe. Late meeting Friday. Can we do Saturday? Of course he said no. Of course Friday was his night with her. Which meant, perfect. I replied, no worries. Let's do next week. He didn't even ask what the big news was. Classic. So I told Brian Friday's the night. He nodded. I'll talk to Jesse. Jesse, as it turns out, was not what I expected. Skinny guy in a hoodie, probably lived off Mountain Dew and Reddit. When we met him, he looked at me and said, you want video, audio, timestamps? I blinked. You can do that? He smirked. Please. These hotel Wi-Fi networks are basically welcome mats. So yes, Jesse had a way. Don't ask. I didn't. All I knew was that Andrew had booked a suite at the Prescott downtown. Same place Savannah had tagged 2 weeks ago in a boomerang story of champagne and a view. Subtle as a brick, that one. Anyway, Jesse set everything up. Some kind of external tap, a feed through the hallway camera, I don't know. I just nodded a lot and said, sounds good. Brian handled the logistics. I handled the script. Friday night, I texted Andrew at 7:43 p.m. Hope the meeting's going okay. I love you. He replied at 8:02 p.m. Long one. Might crash at the hotel. Don't wait up. Don't wait up. That line again. The casual way liars excuse themselves from guilt. Brian and I sat in his truck across from the hotel, sharing cold fries and watching Jesse work on his laptop like it was a video game. Then he said, got it. We leaned in. There they were. Andrew and Savannah. Walking through the lobby like it was their honeymoon. Laughing. Whispering. Holding hands. Brian's jaw clenched, but he didn't say a word. We watched them into the elevator. Jesse flipped to the hallway cam on their floor. A few minutes later, Andrew opened the suite door, Savannah walked in, and then... well, you can guess the rest. We had everything. Video, room number, timestamps. Jesse even pulled a screenshot of Andrew kissing her just before they disappeared inside. That enough? Jesse asked. I swallowed. More than enough. I didn't cry. Brian didn't rage. We just sat there. In silence. Processing. It's a weird thing, watching someone you love act like you don't exist. I turned to Brian. You okay? He nodded slowly. No. But I will be. Same. Later that night, I sat in my apartment. Alone. Andrew still wasn't home. He texted the next morning like nothing had happened. Sorry, babe. Late night. Can't wait to hear about your big news. And I just stared at the message, wondering how many times I'd let this man lie to my face without blinking. But not anymore. I didn't reply. I didn't confront. I got to work. Because step 2 is coming. And if Andrew thought he could keep living his little double life? Oh honey. He was about to learn that sometimes the quiet ones are just the ones gathering receipts. Jesse sent me the final files that Sunday morning. The subject line on the email said, Delivery, Truth. And I swear I just sat there staring at it like it was a bomb with a glowing red button. It took me 5 whole minutes to click. Inside, 3 video files. Lobby footage. Hallway feed. And then the big one inside the hotel room. Not graphic. Just long enough to show what needed showing. Andrew and Savannah. Kissing. Laughing. Pouring wine like they were celebrating something. The girl who once called me ma'am at Andrew's office Christmas party was now barefoot in my husband's lap. And he looked so comfortable. Like he'd done it 100 times before. I paused the video. Closed my laptop. Sat still. Hands clenched. Teeth tight. You know what hit me the hardest? He looked happy. Not guilty. Not conflicted. Just happy. And that did something to me. That flipped a switch. Because pain is one thing. But being replaced by someone who doesn't even try to hide it? That's war. I called Brian. Got the files, I said. He exhaled through the phone. Same here. You okay? No. But I've got a plan. He was quiet for a beat. Then. Tell me. I didn't want to fight. I didn't want to scream at Andrew or confront Savannah in some cliché movie scene. That wasn't me. I wanted precision. And I knew exactly where to strike. Our company's annual brand summit was coming up in 2 weeks. Big deal. Lots of press. Executive teams. Key partners. Andrew always came as my +1. Wore his expensive suit. Worked the room like a politician. Everyone loved him. And this year? Savannah would be there too. The firm she worked at just signed on as our legal sponsor. The irony? Almost poetic. So I pitched it to Brian. Let's do it there, I said. Not the full video. Just enough. He was silent for a second. Then he said, Rachel, you are absolutely terrifying. I smiled. Thanks. We didn't want anything illegal. No drama that would blow back on us. Just a clean little reveal. A few clips. A few texts. Maybe that photo of Andrew whispering in Savannah's ear while she's holding the wine glass. Enough to raise eyebrows. Start whispers. Make sure no one in that room ever looked at them the same way again. Think we can get it into the event reel? I asked. Brian grinned. Leave that to me. I've got a buddy in AV. Apparently Brian has a lot of buddies. We met later that night at his place to go through the files. Laptop open on the coffee table. Dim lights. 2 beers we barely touched. We watched in silence. And the weirdest thing? We didn't cry. We didn't rage. We just sat with it. The quiet hit differently this time. It wasn't numbness. It was focus. The kind that comes when you finally decide you're done being the victim. Brian looked over at me. You sure you want to do this? I nodded. I'm done playing nice. He raised his beer. Then let's burn the playbook. And I swear in that moment I felt something shift in me. Not revenge. Clarity. This wasn't about making them suffer. This was about taking back the narrative. Because for too long they'd been writing our story without asking. And now? Now we were picking up the pen. The annual summit was held at the Alta Hotel, downtown Austin, rooftop view, string lights, and more overpriced wine than since. I wore a black dress I hadn't touched in years. Not because I was trying to impress anyone. I just needed armor. Andrew showed up late, of course. Texted me 20 minutes after cocktail hour started. Parking's a nightmare. Be there soon. Save me a drink. Like nothing was wrong. Like we hadn't already scheduled the funeral for his reputation. He walked in with that same confident smirk. Shook hands. Slapped backs. Waved at our CEO like they were old college buddies. And right behind him? Savannah. Wearing something too tight, too red, and too smug. They didn't touch. But they didn't need to. Everyone saw it. Felt it. That we're definitely pretending we're not sleeping together energy. Brian was already in position, he'd come as my guest. Jacket, clean shave, eyes sharper than ever. He gave me a small nod from across the room. We were ready. Now every year this event had a highlight reel. Photos from company launches, quotes from leadership, cheesy footage of us all pretending to love synergy. And at the end, always a quick slideshow of the people who make it all happen. This year, we just upgraded that last part. Thanks to Brian's AV friend, who, let's be honest, deserved an award for subtle sabotage, we inserted a special segment. Nothing graphic. Just enlightening. The lights dimmed. The reel started. People laughed. Clapped. Sipped wine. Then the transition hit. Soft fade. New music. A title card. A look behind the curtain. First image, Andrew and Savannah. At the Prescott Hotel bar. He's leaning in. She's touching his tie. Next, them walking down the hallway. Timestamp in the corner. Recognizable outfits. Same night Andrew told me he was crashing at the office. Then, a text bubble appears on screen. From Savannah. You're bad. I like it. A few more photos. Her head on his shoulder. Him holding her hand as they enter a suite. Another message. From Andrew. She has no idea. I'm yours tonight. Gasps. Not whispers, gasps. People turned. Looked. Some at me. Some at them. I stood still. Not smiling. Not crying. Just letting it happen. Andrew froze. He was halfway through a glass of Merlot when it happened. His face? Priceless. Savannah turned white. Then red. Then white again. She looked like she wanted to sink into the carpet. The final frame? A quote. Simple. Elegant. Brutal. Trust takes years to build, seconds to break, and forever to repair. Lights up. Silence. Then someone clapped. Just one person. Probably drunk. Then another joined in. And suddenly the room was filled with this awkward, unsure applause like no one knew if they were watching a presentation or an execution. Andrew tried to speak. Opened his mouth. Closed it. Then turned and walked out. Fast. Savannah followed. Not a word. I stood there. Calm. Someone from HR muttered, "Oh my God," behind me. Brian came over, handed me a glass of champagne. To closure? I raised it. To exposure? We didn't gloat. Didn't dance. Didn't smile too big. We just stood there and watched the house of lies collapse in real time. A woman I barely knew came up to me near the exit. Was that real? I looked her dead in the eye. As real as it gets. And then we left. Quietly. No scene. No drama. Outside, under the cool Austin night sky, Brian said, "You okay?" I thought about it. Then said, "Yeah. Actually, I think I am." Because it was done. They could spin it. Deny it. Pretend. But that room saw it. And once you see, you can't unsee. We didn't just take back the story. We rewrote the ending. The next morning, my phone started buzzing before sunrise. Andrew. Then again. Then again. Voicemail after voicemail, like he was trying to stack apologies on top of each other fast enough to keep the whole thing from collapsing. I didn't answer. Didn't even listen. But you know how curiosity works. Around noon, I caved. Played one of them on speaker while folding laundry, like I was tuning into a bad podcast. "Rachel, please. That wasn't how it looks. I mean, God. I screwed up, okay? I panicked. I miss you. Can we talk? Please." The rest were variations on the same theme. "It's not what it looks like. It was a mistake. Let's fix this. I love you. And the kicker? You humiliated me. That was cruel." I actually laughed at that one. Out loud. He cheated. Lied. Used our home as his little motel suite. But I was cruel? Cute. Then came the text. "Can we please meet? Let's be adults. You're not even willing to talk?" I didn't reply. Not because I didn't have anything to say, but because I had nothing to say. And honestly, that's worse. By evening, he escalated. Showed up at my door. I didn't answer at first. Just watched him through the peephole. He looked like hell. Tie loose, eyes red. Probably hadn't slept. Probably wanted a round two of manipulation. I opened the door a crack. "Rachel," he breathed. "Don't do that." He blinked. "Do what?" "Say my name like you still have the right to." That caught him off guard. He stepped back. "I know I messed up." I didn't blink. "You didn't mess up, Andrew. You chose." He looked down. "It wasn't serious. I mean, she was a distraction. That's all." I crossed my arms. "You brought your distraction into our bed. That's not a lapse in judgment. That's a declaration." His eyes met mine. "I still love you. And I still love who you used to be. But that guy hasn't been around in a long time." He went quiet. That kind of silence people use when they realize the script isn't working anymore. Then softer. "So that's it." I nodded. "That's it." He left without slamming the door. And weirdly, that made it feel more final. A few minutes later, Brian texted, "You alive?" I replied, "Technically." He showed up with tacos and an energy drink that claimed to cure all emotional pain in 12 ounces. Spoiler, it didn't. We ate on my balcony. No music. No talking for a while. Then he said, "She called me 12 times today." I glanced at him. "Answer." He shook his head. I wanted to. For like 2 seconds. Then I remembered who I was 2 weeks ago. How small I felt. "Yeah," I said. "I remember that version of me too." He looked over. Not small anymore. It wasn't a flirt. It wasn't even a compliment. It was just truth. There was something comfortable in his presence. Not butterflies. Not heat. Just calm. Like my nervous system could breathe again around him. He wiped salsa off his chin with a paper napkin that had a cartoon cactus on it. You ever feel like we're in some weird buddy movie where nobody's winning? But at least the soundtrack's decent? I smiled. Yeah. Like the kind they show at 2 a.m. when no one's watching. And we both laughed. Real laughs. Tired sore but real. When he left, he said, "You need anything, I'm a text away." I mean that. I believed him. Not because he was perfect, but because for the first time in a long time, someone meant what they said. And that was everything. Some days don't feel like milestones until they're over. Like that random Thursday when I drove to Brian's place without makeup. In leggings with my hair doing whatever it wanted. No pressure. No agenda. Just tacos, porch chairs, and enough silence to make room for the good kind of thoughts. He was already out back, feet on the railing, drinking something that looked suspiciously like gas station coffee. "You call that coffee?" I asked, dropping onto the chair next to him. He grinned. It builds character. I snorted. So would drinking motor oil. The sun was setting slow, painting the sky in that soft peach gold glow Austin does better than most cities. A breeze rolled in, and for the first time in weeks I didn't feel like the air was pushing against me. Brian handed me a can of soda. We sat there. Just sat. No questions. No expectations. Eventually he asked, "You ever think about what now looks like?" I thought about it. Not really, I said. For a long time everything was about them. What they were doing. What they were hiding. What they were ruining. Now it's just blank space. He nodded. Blank space isn't a bad thing. I know. But it's weird. Like I spent so long trying to survive the storm, I forgot what quiet sounds like. He looked out toward the trees. Quiet's underrated. Then he said something that stuck with me. You don't have to build your next chapter in one day. You just have to stop rereading the last one. And I swear, I almost got emotional over that. We talked a little about work. About my company's awkward HR emails since the incident. About how Savannah posted a cryptic story with a broken heart emoji. And a quote from some self-help influencer who probably sells detox tea. Brian said, "She told her mom I hacked her phone." I raised an eyebrow. Did you? Absolutely not, he said. I outsourced that. I laughed. Like real laughed. The kind where your stomach tightens and you forget why you were tense in the first place. God, I said, wiping my eye. I forgot what that feels like. What? He asked. To laugh without flinching. We fell into a long silence after that. But it wasn't empty. It was easy. At some point he looked over and said, "You're different now." I blinked. Different how? Calmer. Lighter. Less clenched. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Yeah. I feel it too. He stood up, stretched, walked over to his old pickup and popped the hood. Just started tinkering like the moment didn't need anything else. I watched from the steps. There was something weirdly peaceful about it. A man fixing something, not trying to fix me. Eventually he turned back toward me, holding a wrench. "You're allowed to be okay now, you know." And for some reason, that sentence hit me harder than anything Andrew ever said in 10 years of marriage. Because yeah, maybe I was okay. Maybe I wasn't broken. Just bent a little like a tree that survived a storm. And sitting there, watching that goofy man in a hoodie tighten bolts under the fading sky, I realized something. Healing doesn't always look like yoga retreats and soul-searching in a desert. Sometimes it's tacos, bad coffee, and someone who doesn't need you to perform your pain. We didn't hug. We didn't lean in. But when I left that night, I felt lighter. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I drove home without looking in the rearview mirror for ghosts. He showed up on a Monday. No call. No warning. Just knocked on my door like he still had a key to my life. I opened it, and there he was, Andrew. Same man I used to plan anniversaries for, pick up dry cleaning for, cry over in the shower when he stayed late at work. Now, puffy eyes, wrinkled button-up, shoulders caved in like the weight of his own lies finally started pressing down. "Rachel," he said, voice cracking. I didn't speak. I didn't flinch. I just stood there and waited. "Can I come in?" I thought for a second, then nodded. Not because I wanted to hear what he had to say. Because I knew I wouldn't need to say much in return. He sat on the edge of the couch like it might bite him. Ran his hands through his hair once. Twice. And then the tears came. Real ones. The kind that aren't for show but also don't change a thing. "I ruined everything," he whispered. "You. Us. Me." Still, I said nothing. He wiped his face. "She's gone. Savannah. Won't answer. Got fired. Her mom's been calling me nonstop, asking what happened. I don't even know what to tell anyone." I waited. He looked up. I was stupid. I thought I could have both. I thought it wasn't that serious. But now I realize I lost the only person who ever really saw me. I tilted my head. "And what did you see when you looked at me, Andrew? A doormat? A backup plan?" His face dropped. "No. God, no. I saw home. I saw peace. I just..." He sighed. "I thought I'd always have time to fix it." I nodded slowly. "You didn't." Then came the thing he'd been building up to. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I wanted you to know. I regret it. All of it. I stood there for a beat, searching for any part of me that still wanted to yell or cry or ask why. But there was nothing left. I wasn't angry. I wasn't bitter. I was just done. Thank you for saying that, I told him. He looked surprised. That's it? He asked. That's it. He stood, hesitated, looked like he wanted to hug me. I stepped back. Just slightly. He nodded, swallowed hard, and walked out the door. No slam. No big goodbye. And somehow that made it feel more final. Later that evening, I was at Brian's. We were halfway through a frozen pizza and a documentary about stolen art when his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, then sighed. It's her. I raised an eyebrow. Savannah. Yep. What does she want? He shrugged. Closure? Attention? A reset button. He opened the message. Read silently. Then deleted it without replying. I'm not going back to that, he said. I smiled. Smart man. He turned to me. I thought I'd feel something. Anger. Regret. Even nostalgia. Do you? Nope. Just tired. We didn't talk much after that. Didn't need to. We finished the pizza. Watched the rest of the documentary. Argued about whether or not the art thief was secretly kind of a genius. But underneath it all, there was this quiet knowing between us. The worst was over. Not because the past stopped knocking, but because we stopped answering. It didn't happen in one moment. Letting go, I mean. There was no big realization. No dramatic turning point. Just smaller things adding up. Waking up and not checking my phone for messages that used to ruin my mornings. Going the whole day without thinking about what he might be doing. Passing by the restaurant where we had our first date and not feeling a thing. It was freedom. But the quiet kind. The kind that sneaks up on you when you're finally not looking for it. Brian and I met up for coffee on a Sunday morning. Just like that. No plan. No pressure. He wore a hoodie that had definitely seen better days, and I showed up in sneakers and no makeup. Neither of us cared. That's how I knew something had shifted. We sat outside, sun on our faces, the air smelling like cinnamon rolls from the bakery next door. So he said, stirring his coffee. How's life on the other side? I smiled. Lighter. You still thinking about him? I shook my head. Not in the way I used to. Now it's more like remembering a book I stopped reading. I know how it ends. I'm just not interested in flipping through it again. He nodded. Same. Savannah texted me again last week. Didn't open it. Didn't even think about it until just now. That's good, I said. It's weird, he added. Not feeling anything. Not hating her. Not wanting her back. Just nothing. That's not weird, I told him. That's peace. We sat there in silence for a while. But it wasn't awkward. It was full. Like both of us were letting the moment breathe. At some point, I said, you ever think maybe we had to go through all of that just to get here? He considered it. I don't believe everything happens for a reason, he said. But I do believe we get to choose what we do with it. I like that. Because I don't think I'd be the woman I am now if none of this had happened. Not stronger. Not colder. Just clearer. We finished our coffee. Walked down the street. Talked about everything and nothing. He told me he might finally open his own garage. I told him I was looking at solo travel blogs, maybe book a trip. Just me and a carry-on. You should, he said. I think you'd love it. You ever travel alone? I asked. Once. Got food poisoning in Chicago and spent 2 days hugging a hotel toilet. Life-changing stuff. We both laughed. And just like that I realized this is what life is supposed to feel like. Not perfect. Not always pretty. But real. At the end of the walk, he looked at me. You know, I don't know where I'm going exactly, he said. But I know I'm not stuck anymore. I nodded. Same. We hugged, not a romantic one, not a goodbye one. Just two people who survived the storm and could finally feel the sun on their backs again. He walked to his truck. I headed toward my car. Two people on their own paths. But somehow, still walking in the same direction. It was a Saturday morning. Nothing special on the calendar. Just blue skies, mild weather, and a vague craving for peaches. Brian texted me. Farmer's market. You in? I said yes without thinking. We didn't call it a date. It wasn't. It was just what we did now. He picked me up in his beat-up truck, same one that rattles if the AC and radio are on at the same time. I didn't care. I liked the noise. It felt honest. The market was already buzzing when we got there, kids with sticky fingers, couples walking dogs, people in floppy hats arguing over zucchini like it was gold. Brian bought a loaf of sourdough from a vendor who clearly knew him. She gave me a quick once-over but didn't say a word. I respected that. We walked the rows. Talked about random stuff, how tomatoes always taste better when you buy them from someone with dirt under their nails. How most artisanal soap just smells like regret and lavender. I caught myself laughing at something he said about ethical jam. Not just a small laugh. A real one. One that made my face stretch and my shoulders drop. And somewhere in the middle of all that noise and movement, it hit me. This was my life now. Not waiting for someone to change. Not shrinking myself to keep the peace. Not checking someone's tone for hidden meaning. Just being. No labels. No pressure. Two people walking side by side, carrying a paper bag full of fruit in some version of peace. We sat on a bench near the edge of the market, splitting a peach like two kids who didn't want to commit to a full one. He looked over. You good? I nodded. I think I'm better than good. Yeah, he said. Same. We didn't talk about the past. Not anymore. We'd already dragged it out, unpacked it, burned the parts that didn't deserve to follow us. Now we were here. Not as a couple. Not as the ones who got hurt. Just two people who went through hell and somehow came out clean. And that was enough. We walked back to the truck slowly, not because we were tired, just because there was no rush. He opened the door for me. I climbed in. And for once I didn't feel like I was leaving something behind. I felt like I was finally going somewhere. No promises. No plans. Just forward. And that was the whole point.